There we go. And then we start off with the third step prayer. God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always. All right. So we are going to be starting on page 59. And Bill is, we don't have Rob today. Rob has got a couple of other things he's doing today, so he was unable to make our meeting, but he'll be back next week. And it'll be Bill and I. So, Bill, if you will, we're on page 59. We're at the steps. And if you want, let's go ahead and just read through all 12 steps all at once, and then we'll break them down after that, if that's okay.
Okay. I'm Bill from New Jersey. I'm an alcoholic. All right. We're on page 59, the second new paragraph. Here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7, humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. 12, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs.
All right. So those are the 12 steps. We don't go into a lot of detail in this class or this study, but we do go through them a little bit. A couple of notes I'll make, and then I'll break them down even further for you as far as some of the things that I've applied to the 12 steps here. One is, we're powerless over alcohol. Talking both the allergy and the malady, and it is one of the, well, it's the first step, but it's a major step that you have to come to terms with. And it's probably one of the more painful admissions that you have to make to yourself personally and privately. It is something that is absolutely necessary in order to get going here. One, I'll recall that doing this is with a lot of honesty, willingness, and the ability to surrender or abandon what we were doing before. So with that, I'll talk a little bit about the steps here. Off to the left in the margin, I have broken these steps down into three sections. Steps 1, 2, and 3 are known as the foundation steps. Steps 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So 4 through 9 are the action steps. And then steps 10, 11, and 12 are the growth or maintenance steps. So steps 1 through 3 are the foundation steps. Steps 4 through 9 are the action steps. And steps 10, 11, and 12 are the growth or maintenance steps. And then each of the steps I've broken down even further and calling them one word notes that kind of describe each of the steps. And the first one is steps 1 is the honesty step. Step 2 is the hope step. Step 3 is the faith step. So the first 3 steps would be honesty, hope, and faith. Step 4 is the courage step. Step 5 is the integrity step. Step 6 is the willingness step. And one of the things that's important here is to remove all of these defects of character. So we've got to be entirely ready to do that. So it's a strong willingness step. Step 7 is the humility step. And we're talking about our shortcomings, not somebody else's, but our shortcomings. Step 8 is the forgiveness step. And the important word here is to make amends to them all, everyone that we have harmed. Number 9 is the justice step. And I will tell you that the biggest amend that you should make is to your higher power. Number 10 is the perseverance step. Step 11 is the awareness step. And step 12 is the service step. And the important here is having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. And that's kind of how we kind of go about it. You start with the steps, and it should help guide you directly into a spiritual awakening. Having had that, you are then able to tap into that inner strength, that higher power, create a relationship with it, and you're good to go there. Bill, have you got anything to add?
Yeah, this is Bill. The only thing I'll add right at the beginning, it says, here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. It doesn't say here are the steps we sat around and talked about taking. When these people did this, they took these steps in the beginning. That's how they got better. They just didn't sit around in the meeting talking about doing them. And the steps are suggested as a program of recovery. That's what the program is. The program is the 12 steps. The program is not going to meetings and sitting around drinking coffee and talking about your stuff. That's good things to do, but that's not the program. The program is the 12 steps. The 12 steps are not part of the program. The 12 steps are the whole program in a nutshell. And the fellowship is different than the program. In the beginning, when they first started AA, the fellowship and the program were basically the same, because when they went to a meeting, they talked about these steps and how to do them, and we're helping each other get through them. And today, when we go to a meeting, we talk about everything except what the program says. So just be aware that the program is the 12 steps. When I came to AA, I thought the program was going to a meeting and talking about my stuff. And that has a good therapeutic value to it, but that's not the program. The program is the steps. And that's all I got to say on that.
Thank you, Bill. I appreciate it. All right. We are at the top of, or near the top of page 60. Bill, if you'll take it for the next paragraph.
Okay, we're on the first new paragraph on page 60. Many of us exclaim, "What an order! I can't go through with it." Do not be discouraged. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. We are not saints. The point is we are willing to grow along spiritual lines. The principles we have set down are guides to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection.
And I think the important thing to really kind of hone on here is the fact that we're not perfect and that we're going to make mistakes. We're not going to be able to adhere to this exactly 100% of the time. And the idea here is that there's always the attempt to, the intended, and when you intend to, then you follow through and you correct where you may have missed something or you've been wrong about something. So the idea here is really the willingness to grow and along these spiritual lines. And it does take a long time. I think it's one of those active steps that are constant, and there's always room for growth and there's always room for improvement. And so they really say it best here is the spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. If you are frustrated because you can't get it perfectly, then it's really one of those things that you would want to sit down and talk with your sponsor or talk with another person about where it is that you feel like that you need to be perfect. In this case, they're trying to not so much let you off the hook, but just put your mind at ease that doing things perfectly is going to be impossible. So the attempt should be just to get as close to it as you can and be good and be good with that, but always trying to be the best you can be. Bill?
Yeah, okay. The next paragraph. Our description of the alcoholic, the chapter to the agnostic, and our personal adventures before and after make clear three pertinent ideas. A, that we were alcoholic and could not manage our own lives. B, that probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. C, that God could and would if he were sought.
Okay, so we're really looking at a couple of things here. We're trying to, really focus on steps 1 and 2 here. The idea is that you really are in the foundation steps. So we're really just breaking down the first couple of 3 steps here and breaking them down so that we can start to understand them a little bit better. It's important that we also have this before and after. The before is before the steps and the after is after the steps. And during that time, you would have been expected to be sober and living a sober lifestyle. So, Bill?
Yeah, well, what Bill's telling us here is he's telling us that the description of the alcoholic, that's in the doctor's opinion in the first 3 chapters. In the chapter to the agnostic, that's chapter 4, we agnostics, and our personal adventures, that would be the stories in the back and also Bill's story, right? And like Leo said, before and after, we went through the steps and we started to get better before and after when we were recovered. And then it's got 3 pertinent ideas, A, B, and C. A is step 1, and B is step 2, and C is also step 2. So basically what Bill Wilson was doing here, he's making a declaration. He's saying that at this point, when you got to this point in the book, steps 1 and step 2 have been completely covered. And you should understand them by now at this point. If not, you're going to need to go back and look at them again. So he's just telling us we've already got through step 1 and step 2. All right, the next paragraph. being convinced, we were at step 3, which is we decided to turn our will and our life over to God as we understood him. Just what do we mean by that? And just what do we do?
So we're basically here. Um, um, we're at step 3. So we're not necessarily doing step 3 right now. This is one of the important things here. We're just describing step 3. So we're at step 3 and we're learning about step 3. So it is, we decided to turn our will and our life over to God as we understood him. And we're going to describe and discuss this in detail going forward here. Bill?
Yeah, it says being convinced. Being convinced of what? Being convinced of A, B, and C. If you're convinced of steps 1 and steps 2, now you're ready to move on to step 3. That's basically what Bill is telling us here. And like Leo said, we're just at the beginning of step 3, and we're just going to go through like an introduction to it to explain to us what it is, so then we can do it. You're not doing step 3 right here at this point. You're just moving into step 3. And then it says, what do we mean by that, and just what do we do? What we're going to do is we're going to go through the whole rest of the book, the first 164 pages, and we're going to follow along with what it says. That's what we have to do in order to complete this. All right, the next paragraph. The first requirement is that we be convinced that any life run on self-will can hardly be a success. On that basis, we are almost always in collision with something or somebody, even though our motives are good. Most people try to live by self-propulsion. Each person is like an actor who wants to run the whole show, is forever trying to arrange the lights, the ballet, the scenery, and the rest of the players in his own way. If his arrangements would only stay put, if only people would do as he wished, the show would be great. Everybody, including himself, would be pleased. Life would be wonderful. In trying to make these arrangements, our actor may sometimes be quite virtuous. He may be kind, considerate, patient, generous, even modest and self-sacrificing. On the other hand, he may be mean, egotistical, selfish, and dishonest. But as with most humans, he is more likely to have varied traits.
Yeah, so we're really kind of working through this. The first requirement is that we be convinced that any life run on self-will can hardly be a success. And that's easier said than done. You're so used to running on your own, your own will, that you have a hard time relying on something else to help you get through this. And we're talking about a higher power. And this is the start of the solution. So it seems like that we're always at odds with something and or somebody. And even though our intentions are good, this self-will or self-propulsion, as they say, is what gets us in trouble, because we think that we can make those decisions on our own. We think that we can control things to the extent that we can, and that should take care of everything. And that's kind of what they kind of move into here, is that attempt to control what your life and those around you. And that's just not possible, because people are just not going to stand still for that, and that creates the problems. Sometimes it is somewhat manipulative. I think that this kindness, consideration, and patience, and then being also mean and egotistical and selfish, all of that is as a person should try to be genuine and not try to be in control of everything. Bill?
Yeah, if you notice right at the beginning of this paragraph, Bill says the first requirement. Up to this point, he was calling everything a suggestion Now he's telling us it's a requirement. That means you better do it or it's not going to work for you. Bill's starting to get a little more strict now with the program. He's telling us what we need to do, not just suggesting that we do something. And he talks about here a person is like an actor who wants to run the whole show. That's what most of us do. Well, before we get through this process and before we stop drinking, we're trying to run everything and tell everybody else what to do. We're trying to control other people. And trying to control others is one of the characteristics of selfishness. And it's going to tell us a little later in here we have to get rid of that selfishness. So we have to stop trying to control everybody. And it also tells us if everybody would pay attention to us and do what we want, we would be happy, everything would be great, and everybody, including ourselves, would be pleased. Of course, if everybody did everything I wanted, I would be pleased 100%. But life just doesn't work like that. Everybody has their own self-will, and everybody can do whatever they want, whatever they think is the best thing to do. And we can't control others, and we have to get that nonsense out of our head so that we can live life peacefully. All right, we're on the first new paragraph on page 61. Do you want me to read this the way it's written, or do you want me to put I in there?
Let's go ahead and put I in there if you want, Bill.
Okay.
And just kind of those listen to how it changes it to be more personal.
Yeah, it makes it more personal when you put I in there. If you want to do that, it's a good suggestion. If not, you can read it the way it is. All right, I'll read it with I in there. What usually happens, the show doesn't come off very well. I begin to think life doesn't treat me right. I decide to exert myself more. I become, on the next occasion, still more demanding or gracious, as the case may be. Still, the play does not suit me. Admitting I may be somewhat at fault, I am sure that other people are more to blame. I become angry, indignant, self-pitying. What is my basic trouble? Am I not really a self-seeker even when trying to be kind? Am I not a victim of the delusion that I can satisfaction and happiness out of this world if I only manage well? Is it not evident to all the rest of the players that these are the things I want? And do not my actions make each of them wish to retaliate, snatching all they can get out of the show? Am I not, even in my best moments, a producer of confusion rather than harmony?
Yeah, I've read this several times using the I and me in there. Thank you, Bill. It is it's what we do. It's what we are, and it's kind of self-pity here with the way it looks, and it's very true. We're taking a play and the actors and that type of thing, but it's actually, you can transfer this to just about anything with regard to and to what you're doing, and it's one of the biggest stumbling blocks to sobriety is this rest, satisfaction, and happiness out of the world. If I only manage well, and that's not going to be possible. So what we're trying to do is say we're personalizing this. It really does give you the idea here as a conversation that you've probably had with yourself several times, and looking at it. And the people here, the wanting to retaliate because of it, and this control creates this defensive posture, and then it just snowballs from there. Bill?
Yeah, I think what the book is trying to get across to us here is that I'm always trying to do things my way, and I'm trying to control other people, and the other people know exactly what we're up to or what I'm up to, and then they retaliate, and it just snowballs out of proportion. And the next thing you know, we're at each other's throats, or trying to get even with each other. He's just trying to show us what we do, so we can identify with the different actions that we take with other people. Okay, we're on the last paragraph on page 61. Our actor is self-centered, egocentric, as people like to call it nowadays. He is like a retired businessman who lolls in the Florida sunshine in the winter, complaining of the sad state of the nation. The minister who sighs over the sins of the 20th century, politicians and reformers who are sure all would be utopia if the rest of the world would only behave. The outlaw safecracker who thinks society has wronged him, and the alcoholic who has lost all and is locked up. Whatever our protestations, are not most of us concerned with ourselves, our resentments, or our self-pity.
Yeah, and the protestations is another word for that is disagreements. So our disagreements are not most of us concerned. And we really are concerned with ourselves, and that's kind of what they're trying to say here is that we're being self-centered and egocentric, and really focused on us and only us, and again just being concerned with ourselves. It just gives us different examples of different people who are thinking relatively the same thing, and that is about themselves and their resentments and their self-pity. Bill?
Okay, we're on the first new paragraph on page 62. Selfishness, self-centeredness, that we think is the root of our troubles. Driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, and self-pity, we step on the toes of our fellows and they retaliate. Sometimes they hurt us, seemingly without provocation, but we invariably find that at some time in the past, we have made decisions based on self, which later placed us in a position to be hurt.
Yeah, it's your life, it's your fault. It's my life, my fault. Bill says self in this several times, and it's really to try and focus the light on us with regard to who it is that is really at fault, and is probably the one that because of something in the past has caused others to be defensive and essentially retaliate, sometimes without even provocation. If you sit down and kind of think about it, there's probably something that happened in the past that you were wrong. But this focus on self is really what they're trying to do, and highlight it so that we can make sure that we take that light that we've got shining on ourselves and move it to others. But right now we're just basically focusing on the fact that we have actually done this. Bill?
Yeah, Bill Wilson put self in here 6 times in this paragraph. And he's trying to tell us that's what our main problem is. It's ourself. It's not everybody else. And the selfishness and self-centeredness, that's when we do things out of selfishness and out of self-centeredness, that puts us in a position to be hurt by other people. Because sometimes we step on people's toes without even intending to, and they retaliate, and then everything gets blown out of proportion. All right, the next paragraph. So our troubles, we think, are basically of our own making. They arise out of ourselves, and the alcoholic is the extreme example of self-will run riot, though he usually doesn't think so. Above everything, we alcoholics must be rid of this selfishness. We must, or it kills us. God makes that possible. And there often seems no way of entirely getting rid of self without his aid. Many of us had moral and philosophical convictions galore, but we could not live up to them, even though we would have liked to. Neither could we reduce our self-centeredness much by wishing or trying on our own power. We had to have God's help.
And that's really the focus here, is that you've got to get help in order to take that light and take it from shining on you and move it to somebody else or something else. Our troubles, we think, are basically of our own making. We are the ones that are at fault. And it talks about alcoholics kind of as an extreme example. I kind of like the ideas that you're listening to music and the volume is turned up when we're talking about the alcoholic, and that is just a good analogy for what they're trying to say here. And this self-will run riot, I think, is just that calamity and chaos that is formed because of us, and it's that we need to get rid of, and we do this through being selfless instead of selfish. We kind of do this because if we don't, we're not going to be successful with our recovery. And if we're not successful with our recovery, it can kill us. And the seriousness of this is kind of brought up here with an exclamation mark, but it will kill us. Our higher power is what helps us, and we can't get entirely rid of ourself without that inner strength, that help from your higher power. And this is also part of the human condition. Everybody suffers from this. It's just that we, as alcoholics, are more extreme examples of it. So it's everyone that suffers from this. So it's because of that. It's also it's a challenge to be able to take that light off of yourself and move the light over to others and focus on them as opposed to yourself. Bill?
Yeah, Bill's trying to tell us here that we make our own troubles. Because of our own selfishness and our own self-centeredness, we create our own trouble. And he's telling us here that the alcoholic is the extreme example of self-will run riot. Even if we're sober, even if we're not drinking, we are still alcoholics. And we still have this alcoholic condition to deal with. So we are the extreme example of self-will run riot. And that's like what that means, that's like a bull in a china shop. We're destroying things without even knowing that we're doing it. Or we're like a tornado roaring through the lives of others. That's what self-will run riot is when we're doing stuff that we shouldn't do and we can't really stop doing it. And we don't see anything wrong with it. And we're the extreme example. Leo said this one time, extreme means with the volume turned up. So we are different than normal humans. Normal humans have self-will, but they don't have it in the same extreme that an alcoholic has it in. And then he's telling us we can't get rid of this without God's help. God makes that possible. We need God's help in order to get rid of this self-will and this selfishness. We're not going to get rid of it just on our own. You can't defeat self with self. You can't use your own self-will to get rid of your own self-will. It's not going to work. We need to have God's help. And that's basically the point he's trying to get across to us here. Okay. And he gave us two more requirements in this paragraph. Above everything, we must be rid of the selfishness. That's the second requirement. It told us on page 60 what the first requirement is. This is the second requirement. We have to get rid of this selfishness. If we don't, we're going to have a hard time going through this process and getting this program to work for us. And the third requirement is at the end of that paragraph, we had to have God's help. That's a requirement to get through this process. We need God's help. All right, we're on the last paragraph on page 62. This is the how and why of it. First of all, we had to quit playing God. It didn't work. Next, we decided that hereafter in this drama of life, God was going to be our director. He is the principal. We are his agents. He is the Father. We are his children. Most good ideas are simple, and this concept was the keystone of the new and triumphant arch through which we pass to freedom.
Okay, so the idea here is that we have to stop playing God, and that's an important thing, that stop trying to control things yourself and control others. It's not going to work. So stop doing what doesn't work, really, and that's kind of a simple way of saying it. Um, the the keystone here is, if you remember, the keystone is the top of an arch, and it is the strong the structure itself is what gives the arch its strength, and so um, this idea and is simple, and really truly it is kind of simple, but there's some complexity to it with regard to how you've got to go about clearing out your mind, your heart, and getting this idea that you're not in control anymore, and that you're going to rely on your higher power to assist you. This idea here is that too. One of the things I want to kind of point out is that there's the word must is used, and really Bill has used must 76 times in the first portion of this book. So as we kind of are looking at this, the last couple of paragraphs from above, we must be rid of this. We must, or it will kill us. This is important work, and it is a foundation of getting better and starting that road to recovery. Bill?
We have to quit playing God. That's the fourth requirement. So Bill's starting to give us more requirements in here, telling us what we need to do. He's not labeling each one as a requirement, but you can pick them out and see what he means by it. And why do we quit playing God? Because it didn't work. The book is just asking us to stop doing something that doesn't work. I don't know anybody that's had any success at playing God. It just doesn't. And then it says, God is going to be our director. That's the fifth requirement. We have to let God be the director. God's going to be in charge. And it talks about this, the keystone here. A lot of people call the third step the keystone step. The keystone is the stone that holds the structure together. It holds the archway together. So he's telling us that getting God in our life and relying on God, that's what's going to hold our whole program together. Okay, we're on the top of page 63. There's a whole bunch of promises here in this paragraph. When we sincerely took such a position, all sorts of remarkable things followed. We had a new employer. Being all-powerful, he provided what we needed if we kept close to him and performed his work well. Established on such a footing, we became less and less interested in ourselves, our little plans and designs. More and more we became interested in seeing what we could contribute to life. As we felt new power flow in, as we enjoyed peace of mind, as we discovered we could face life successfully, as we became conscious of his presence, we began to lose our fear of today, tomorrow, or the hereafter. We were reborn.
Yes, and so we are talking about the promises. This is that paragraph that has the promises in it. I'll cover them for you as we kind of go along here. And this is all prior to step 3, so we haven't gotten to step 3 just yet. It was 1, he provided what we needed if we kept close to him and performed his work well. 2, we established on such a footing, we became less and less interested in ourselves, our little plans and designs. 3, more and more we became interested in seeing what we could contribute to life. 4, as we felt new power flow in. 5, as we enjoyed peace of mind. 6, as we discovered we could face life successfully. 7, as we became conscious of his presence. And then 8, we began to lose our fear of today, tomorrow, or the hereafter. As a result of that, we were reborn. So those are the promises that are part of this program. And it's one that I think we need to really take to heart and realize that by doing the house cleaning that's required and the taking the focus off of this of self and moving it to others and abandoning or surrendering this idea of everything was about you, and doing so, these are some of the promises that will happen as you do go through about it and go through it. Bill?
Yeah, the first thing it says in this paragraph, when we sincerely took such a position. What position? They just told us that in the previous paragraph. We have to quit playing God, and we're going to let God be the director. When we get to that point and we take that position, these promises will start to follow after we take that certain position. Okay, we're on the next paragraph, the second paragraph on page 63. We were now at step 3. Many of us said to our Maker, as we understood him, God, I offer myself to thee to build with me and do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always. We thought well before taking this step, making sure we were ready, that we could at last abandon ourselves utterly to him.
Okay, so this is really what is known as the third step prayer. It is now at step 3. So we've been talking about steps 1 and 2, and we've been describing what is going to happen in step 3. And by taking this step here, this step 3, we basically are saying this prayer. And as we say this prayer, it is taking that next step and completing step 3. So the saying of this prayer to someone is desirable if that someone understands. But if not, doing it personally and privately with your higher power is really what's most important. And just remember here, as thou wilt relieve me of the bondage of self. And, remember again, we are the problem. And I may better do thy will. And this is an idea. And then bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life is a reference to step 12. Even though we're in step 3, this is something that we'll be doing over and over again. By completing this prayer or one like it, very similar anyway, you have now done step 3, and you move from one place to another, and at this point, it's time to stop and think and really internalize what you're doing and why. Bill? Like Leo said, this is known as the step 3 prayer. And basically, when you say this prayer, that's when you completed this step. And the prayer is an affirmation just to let you know that you've done it and you completed it. You actually, what the step says, is made a decision. And you make the decision like 1/2 a second before you say this prayer. You make the decision to say it. So you've actually done the step just before you start saying the prayer. But the prayer is just proof to yourself that you've already did it. And like was mentioned, it says, relieve me of the bondage of self. It doesn't say the bondage of alcohol or the bondage of drugs or the bondage of addictive behavior. It says the bondage of self. We're asking God in this prayer
to take away our self-will that gets us in trouble. That's gets me in trouble, is my own self-will. And I'm asking God to take that away because I'm under the bondage of my own self-will. And I'm asking God to take that away from me because my self-will is selfish and self-centered and self-seeking. And I'm asking God to take that stuff away so that I can do his will. And it says, take away my difficulties. That, as far as alcoholism is concerned, that means take away my obsession to drink. Take away those ideas that this time it's going to be different. Take away my urges to have a drink. Take away the idea that I'm romancing the drink and that I think it's cool and I want to do it. I'm asking God to take away my difficulties when it comes to alcoholism. And that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help. That's like was already said. Step 12 is right here in the middle of this. I'm going to help people. And by taking away my difficulties, that's going to bear witness. A witness is a person that tells the story of what they saw happen. So I'm going to use the fact that I got rid of my difficulties with alcoholism. I'm going to tell that story to other people so that it can help them get better. I'm actually making a deal or a contract here with God. I'm saying, you take away my difficulties and I'll help your children get through their difficulties by telling them how you removed my difficulties. So again, that's actually a reference to step 12 because that's what we're going to do in step 12. And they called it bearing witness. And that's the terms that they used to use in different denominations. In AA, we call it speaking. We go out to a speaker meeting and we're going to speak and tell our story so it can help somebody that needs help. Now, they called it bearing witness in the beginning. It's basically the same thing. They used to get up in front of the room in these Oxford group meetings before they had AA, and they would tell a story of how God saved their life and made them better, and now they're not sinners anymore, and now they could be saved. And we're doing the same thing, except we're not talking about being sinners. We're talking about being drunks, and now we're not a drunk anymore. So that's basically what he's talking about here. And if you notice, there's no amen at the end of this prayer. A lot of people believe this prayer is the beginning of the prayer, and when you get to the 7th step prayer, that's the end of the prayer. And all the little prayers in between are added into there also. And what it says here, make sure we were ready before we take this step. That's the 6th requirement. You have to be ready to do this before you do it. Otherwise, it's not going to work. If you're just doing this and telling people you're going to say this prayer and you're taking the step because everybody else in the room is doing it and you're really not ready to do it, it's probably not going to work for you too good. And the 7th requirement is you have to abandon yourselves utterly to him. And him has a capital H. That means you're going to abandon yourself to God, which means you're going to surrender to God. When you surrender to God, that means you have to ask God for help. So that's basically what he's talking about here. Okay, we're on the next paragraph. We're towards the bottom of page 63. We found it very desirable to take this spiritual step with an understanding person, such as our wife, best friend, or spiritual advisor. But it is better to meet God alone than with one who might misunderstand. The wording, of course, is quite optional, so long as we express the idea, voicing it without reservation. This was only a beginning, though if honestly and humbly made, an effect, sometimes a very great one, was felt at once.
Yeah, we're essentially talking about a relationship with your higher power, saying it to somebody that's a trusted agent, such as your wife, best friend, or spiritual advisor, and in these days, your sponsor. The idea is that you want to voice it and say it out loud, and really mean it. In the past, I know that Bill and Bob would take people upstairs to a room and have them say out loud a prayer much like this, and commit themselves to the program, and really go through it in a way that was starkly honest. And that very honest approach to it would would be quite impactful as far as the individuals were concerned. Bill?
Yeah, what Bill's telling us here is you can do this step with other people. You can do it with an understanding person, your wife, your best friend, or a spiritual advisor. And this is the only time the book uses the term spiritual advisor. In the beginning, when they wrote this book, they didn't have sponsors and sponsees yet. They weren't using those terms. They were calling people a spiritual advisor, which, according to this would be the same thing that a sponsor is today. It was somebody who helped walk them through this 12-step process so that they could get better, they could be recovered. And today we would call it a sponsor. They were calling it a spiritual advisor. And it says, it's better to meet God alone than with one whom I misunderstand. So you can do this prayer with other people. You can do it in a group with a whole bunch of people, or you can do it all by yourself. It doesn't matter. Wherever you feel more comfortable with, that's where you can do it. And it says the wording was quite optional. In other words, if you don't like the way this prayer is written, you can make up your own prayer. It doesn't have to be the same thing. All it has to do is have the same idea in it. There's a story about Fitz Mayo back on page 215 in the back of the book, where he has his own prayer that he says. Somebody that was in the town's hospital told him a prayer to say, and it's very similar to this, but it's different. So you can make up anything that's, as long as it gets the same idea out, that's really all that counts. And then it says, when you say this prayer, you have to voice it. You can't just say it to yourself. You got to say it out loud. That's the 8th requirement. When you get to this prayer, you're supposed to voice it, say it out loud. When you say something out loud, you can't take it back. If you just say it in your head, you can always make believe that you didn't say it. I heard a saying one time in AA, you can't take something back if it's broken or spoken. Once you say something, you can't take it back. But if you don't say it out loud, you can convince yourself that you didn't say it, and then you can say, well, I really didn't do step 3, so I don't have to follow along with what's going on here. So that's why we voice it, because once we voice it, we can make believe that we didn't say it. Because we always lie to ourselves. I don't know what kind of alcoholic anybody else is, but I was such a good liar that I would believe my own lies. So you have to be careful there. That's why we say it out loud. And then it says this is only a beginning. That means you got a lot more stuff to do. This is only the beginning here. And it says we're going to get an effect, sometimes a very great one. A lot of people, right at step 3, they start having a spiritual awakening or a spiritual experience right when they go through step 3. Some people don't get anything till they get to step 5. Some people don't get anything till they get to step 9. Some people, they have to go all the way to step 12. It could be different for different people. Some people get this a little bit easier. Some people, it takes longer. Some of us are more hard-headed than others. It takes us longer to get it. It doesn't matter when you get it, as long as you get it. There's no right and wrong way to get this program. As long as you get it, that's all that counts. It doesn't matter how you do it or how long it takes or whatever. Okay, that's pretty much all I got on this.
Okay. And Bill, what we'll do is we'll stop there for today and pick it up because we're going to be starting step 4 next Saturday. So I'll close out with the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.